Welcome to Watch the Book. Today we present The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, published in 1895. This story stands as a foundational masterpiece of science fiction. In a luxurious London dining room, the man we know only as the time traveller captivates his dinner guests, his face flushed with enthusiasm under the glow of incandescent lights. With a lean forefinger marking his points, he challenges the fundamental ideas of geometry, arguing that the concepts of lines and planes are merely convenient abstraction. He posits that any real body must have four dimensions: length, breadth, thickness, and duration. Time, he declares, is simply the fourth dimension that we rarely consider. The medical man questions why we cannot move freely in time as we do in the other dimensions of space. The time traveller smiles, ready with his revolutionary explanation. That, the time traveller proclaims, is the germ of my great discovery. But you are wrong to say that we cannot move about in time. We are doing it constantly, in one direction. He reveals his true ambition, not merely to drift along the time dimension, but to build a machine that can stop, accelerate, or even travel backward through the years. Amidst laughter and cries of humbug, the time traveller walks to his laboratory, promising to return with experimental verification of his seemingly impossible theory. He returns holding a glittering model, a delicate framework of metal, ivory, and crystalline substance, scarcely larger than a small clock. He places it on a table before the fire. He explains that one lever sends the model into the future, and another reverses the motion. He invites his guests to inspect it closely, to satisfy themselves there is no trickery. Turning to the skeptical psychologist, the time traveller asks him to push the lever. The psychologist's own finger sends the model on its incredible, interminable voyage. With a breath of wind and a flicker of the lamps, the model swings around, becomes indistinct like a ghost, and then vanishes completely. The table, save for the lamp, is bare. His guests are stunned into silence. The time traveller calmly reveals that he has a nearly finished, full-scale version of the machine, upon which he intends to journey himself. He leads his incredulous friends down a long corridor to the laboratory, the flickering lamplight casting dancing shadows on the walls as they follow in a puzzled procession. There in the lab sits the larger machine, a thing of nickel, ivory, and quartz crystal. It is nearly complete, with twisted crystalline bars lying unfinished on the workbench beside it. A week later, the narrator and other guests assemble for another dinner. The time traveller is inexplicably absent, leaving only a note asking them to begin without him. As the psychologist recounts the events of the previous week, the door opens slowly. The time traveller appears in the doorway, his clothes torn, his face pale and haggard. He is in an amazing plight, covered in dust and dirt, with a half-healed cut on his chin. He walks with a painful limp, his feet clad only in tattered, blood-stained socks. He says nothing, draining a glass of champagne before asking them to save him some mutton. He promises to explain everything after he has washed, dressed, and eaten. After a ravenous meal, he leads them to the smoking room. He agrees to tell his story, but on one condition: there can be no interruptions, no matter how unbelievable his tale may seem. "I was in my laboratory at 4 o'clock, he begins, his voice weary. "And since then, I've lived 8 days. Such days as no human being has ever lived before." He describes sitting in the saddle, taking the starting lever, and feeling a nightmarish sensation of falling as the laboratory around him grew hazy and dark. He pushed the lever to its extreme. Night and day began to flash past like the flapping of a black wing, and the sun hopped swiftly across the sky, marking a day every minute. The dizzying palpitation of night and day soon merged into a continuous greyness. The sky took on a wonderful deep blue, and the sun became a brilliant streak of fire across space. Through the blur of his rapid passage, he watched huge buildings rise and pass like dreams, and saw the very surface of the earth seem to melt and flow beneath his eyes. A dreadful new fear gripped him. The risk of stopping. To halt meant jamming his own atoms into whatever occupied that space, risking a catastrophic, explosive disintegration. Overcome by panic and the sheer strangeness of it all, he threw the lever. The machine went reeling over, and he was flung headlong through the air with a clap of thunder. He finds himself sitting on soft turf in the year 802,701 amidst a pitiless hailstorm. Through the downpour, a colossal white figure looms indistinctly in the distance. As the hail subsides, he sees the figure clearly. A great, weather-worn statue of a winged white sphinx, its sightless eyes seeming to watch him with the faint shadow of a smile. The storm vanishes, revealing a world of splendid architecture under an intense blue sky. He feels naked and afraid, like a bird knowing a hawk is circling high above. He hears voices approaching and sees a slight, graceful creature emerge from the bushes. It is perhaps 4 feet high, clad in a purple tunic, and utterly beautiful but frail. This creature of the future, one of the Eloi, comes straight up to him and laughs into his eyes, showing no fear. Soon, a small group of these exquisite people surround him. He notices their delicate, dressed-in-china features, large, mild eyes, small pointed chins, and uniformly curly hair. They touch him with soft hands, curious if he is real. The time traveler points to the sun, trying to communicate his origin. An Eloi mimics the sound of thunder, revealing an intellect on the level of a 5-year-old child. Disappointed but amused, he is garlanded with unknown beautiful flowers and led past the silent Sphinx towards a vast, grey and somewhat dilapidated stone edifice. Inside, a great hall is filled with a couple hundred Eloi dining on strange fruits at low stone tables. The air is one of richness, yet also of decay and accumulated dust. He joins their meal, finding the fruit delightful. He resolves to learn their language, but discovers the Eloi are indolent creatures, easily fatigued and lacking in interest. Exploring this future Eden, he realizes the world is a neglected, weedless garden. There are no small houses, only palace-like communes. The sexes, he notes, are almost identical. From a hilltop, he surveys the valley at sunset and forms a theory. Humanity had conquered nature, achieving perfect comfort and security, which led to a slow, inevitable decay. With no dangers to face, he reasons, strength, intelligence, and even the family unit became unnecessary. Humanity had triumphed, and this beautiful weakness was the result. As the full moon rises, a chill doubt strikes him. He looks back towards the lawn where he arrived. The tangle of bushes is there. The White Sphinx is there, but the time machine is gone. A passion of fear grips him. He runs headlong down the slope, his mind screaming that the Eloi have simply moved it, while knowing instinctively that this is not the case. He reaches the empty lawn, his worst fears realized. Above him, the leprous white face of the Sphinx seems to smile in mockery of his profound and sudden despair. In a frenzy, he confronts the sleeping Eloi in the great hall. He shakes them, screaming, "Where is my time machine?" But they only look at him with terror and incomprehension. After a night of hopeless searching, he awakens on the turf. In the reasonable daylight, he calms himself and resolves to be patient and learn the ways of this new world. He discovers a groove ripped in the turf and strange, narrow footprints, like those of a sloth. They lead directly to the bronze pedestal of the great White Sphinx. The pedestal is hollow. He infers his machine is locked inside. When he gestures towards it, however, the Eloi react with a strange horror, as if he's committed a terrible offense. his patience breaking. He hammers on the bronze panels with a large stone, but to no avail. He realizes he must abandon this approach and learn the secrets of this world. He notices peculiar circular wells across the landscape. Peering down, he can't see water, but hears the thudding of a great engine and feels a steady current of air being sucked down. While watching some Eloi by a river, one begins to drown. To his astonishment, none attempt a rescue. He dives in and saves the weakly crying creature himself. The rescued Eloi, whose name is Weena, forms a deep, childlike attachment to him. Her affection becomes a great comfort, giving him the feeling of having a home to return to. From Weena, he learns that the Eloi possess one great fear, a passionate, paralyzing terror of the dark. After nightfall, they huddle together in the great halls for safety. One morning, just before dawn, he is awakened by an odd fancy. In the dim grey hour, he sees several solitary white, ape-like figures carrying a dark body up the hill. Seeking shelter from the heat in a large ruin, he enters a dark gallery. He is spellbound by a pair of luminous eyes watching him from the deep blackness. He steps forward, and something white runs past him. A queer, ape-like figure with large greyish-red eyes. It blunders into the sunlight before disappearing into another dark shadow. Following it, he finds one of the deep wells. Lighting a match, he sees the small white creature clambering down the shaft like a human spider, using metal rungs on the wall. The terrible truth dawns on him. Humanity has not just decayed. It has differentiated into two distinct species. This bleached, nocturnal thing is also heir to all the ages. He now has a clue to the wells, the underground machinery and the ghosts. He formulates a new theory based on the social divisions of his own time, capital and labour. The Eloi are the descendants of the idle rich, living in faded beauty above ground. The Morlocks are the progeny of the workers, driven underground for so long they evolved for the dark. Yet he has troublesome doubts. If the Eloi are masters, why can't they get his machine back? And why are they so terrified of the Morlocks and the approaching dark night? Driven by a growing dread, he resolves to descend into the underworld. Kissing Weena goodbye, he clambers into the throat of a well, ignoring her piteous cries to stop. 200 yards down, he finds a side tunnel. In the dark, a soft hand touches his face. He strikes a match, revealing 3 stooping Morlocks who retreat from the glare. He enters a vast cavern filled with the throb of machinery. In the fleeting matchlight, he sees big, unmeaning shapes and lurking Morlock figures. The air smells faintly of blood. He sees a small metal table laid with a meal, a joint of reddish meat. He wonders what large animal could have survived to furnish it, a thought that will later return with horror. In the darkness, lank fingers begin to feel over his face and pluck at his clothes. He is surrounded. He shouts, but they only make a queer laughing noise as they grow bolder. He lights his few remaining matches to fight his way back to the shaft. In their glare, he sees their nauseatingly inhuman pale, chinless faces and great, lidless, pinkish-grey eyes. As his last match goes out, his feet are grasped. Kicking violently, he disengages himself and scrambles up the shaft, a deadly nausea overwhelming him as he nears the top. He emerges into the blinding sunlight and collapses, where Weena finds him. He now feels like a beast in a trap whose enemy, the darkness of the new moon, will soon be upon him. A new, terrible relationship exists between the species. The Eloi are beautiful futility. The Morlocks, their ancient servants, are now their masters, tending to them for a grim purpose. The memory of the meat returns. He realizes the Eloi are no more than fatted cattle, bred and preserved by the Morlocks as their primary source of food. He decides to journey to a distant structure, the Palace of Green Porcelain, seeking weapons and refuge. He carries Weena on his shoulder as the sun begins to set. As they approach a wide black wood, he becomes too tired to continue. He decides to spend the night on the open hill, with Weena sleeping wrapped in his jacket. The next day they reach the Palace of Green Porcelain. It is a vast, ruined museum. In a gallery of machinery, he breaks a lever from a machine, creating a powerful iron mace. His greatest discovery comes in a chemistry exhibit. A box of perfectly preserved safety matches and a sealed jar of flammable camphor. He now has the weapon of fire. Armed with his mace and the power of flame, he feels a renewed confidence. His plan is to spend one more night in the open, and then return to assault the White Sphinx. To cover their retreat from some lurking Morlocks, he makes a foolish error. He lights a pile of brushwood, which quickly spreads into a raging forest fire. He plunges into the dark wood, carrying Weena, with the fire at his back and the pattering of pursuing Morlocks all around him. He becomes lost and disoriented in the blackness. He builds a small bonfire to rest, but the smoke and exhaustion make him heavy with sleep. He nods off and his fire dies out. The Morlocks are instantly upon him. In the suffocating darkness, he fights back with his iron bar, feeling the sickening give of flesh and bone. He struggles to his feet, swinging the mace to keep them at bay. The darkness begins to glow. The forest fire has caught up to them. He sees the Morlocks are not attacking, but fleeing past him, their white backs now glowing reddish. He emerges into an open space encircled by flames. Dozens of Morlocks, blinded and bewildered by the intense light, are groping helplessly. But Weena is nowhere to be seen. He realizes with horror that his poor, loyal Weena was lost in the struggle in the dark, and her body is now somewhere in the path of the inferno he created. The next morning, exhausted and grieving, he limps across the smoking ashes towards the White Sphinx. In his pocket, he discovers a few loose matches that had fallen from the box. As he approaches the pedestal, he finds the most unexpected thing. The bronze doors are open. The time machine sits inside, carefully oiled and cleaned. It is a trap. He steps inside and the panels clang shut, plunging him into darkness. Calmly he reaches for a match, but realizes they are safety matches and he doesn't have the box. The Morlocks are upon him. He desperately fights them off with one hand while fumbling to fit the levers onto the machine's controls with the other. It is a frantic, final scramble. At last, a lever is fixed and pulled over. The clinging hands slip away, and he is hurled into the tumult of time, travelling uncontrollably into the far, far future. He stops 30 million years from his own time. The sun is a vast, dying ember. The air is thin, and the only life is a monstrous crab-like creature on a desolate, salty beach. He watches in horror as a great darkness sweeps over the sky. An eclipse begins, a bitter cold wind rises, and he sees a final, flopping tentacle thing on the blood-red sea. Feeling himself fainting from the cold and the oppressive silence of a dead world, he clambers onto the saddle and throws the lever into reverse, speeding back towards his own time. He returns to his laboratory, to the exact moment of his departure. He stumbles into the dining room, tells his incredible story, and offers one piece of proof: 2 withered white flowers given to him by Weena. If this journey through time has captured your imagination, subscribe to Watch the Book for more narrative deep dives into the greatest stories ever written. We bring the classics to life.